Hi, everyone, and welcome back to this episode of the Evidence-Based Birth Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about hypnosis for pain relief during labor. And this is a much awaited topic. I've had people for years ask me if I could post something about the evidence on using hypnosis. Hypnotherapy or clinical hypnosis is using hypnosis for a specific therapeutic purpose. Hypnosis is simply a way of altering your conscious awareness. It involves focusing your attention inward and becoming increasingly responsive to something called suggestions. Suggestions are basically communications that can be verbal or nonverbal. These communications have the power to affect your perceptions, your mood, or your thoughts or feelings. For example, suggestions may influence how you perceive your contraction. Suggestions may focus on feeling safe, comfortable, or relaxed, and to help you view your labor sensations as positive and productive. In hypnotherapy, there's also an emphasis on de-hypnotizing individuals from negative words, thoughts, and feelings about childbirth. For example, a lot of people associate the word contraction with severe pain. So in hypnotherapy, there's usually an effort to de-hypnotize you so that you view contractions differently and more positively. And so many people who use hypnotherapy use different words other than contractions to describe them. So they might say surges or waves instead of contractions. Hypnosis is a completely voluntary state where someone can choose to enter the hypnotic state or disengage from it at will if they want to get out of it. In other words, suggestions, those communications I talked about, can be refused because the individual remains fully conscious. There are two main ways that hypnotherapy can be provided during childbirth. One is to use a hypnotherapist who stays with the mother during labor and guides them into self-hypnosis during labor. The other option is to use a hypnotherapist or instructor to teach mothers how to use self-hypnosis. And this can be taught in one-on-one settings or in group classes. Group classes that teach hypnotherapy are often supplemented with audio recordings that you listen to at home and during labor. I've been using the word, quote, self-hypnosis because this is a voluntary state, as I described earlier, where the mother chooses to enter it. And also, while they're in hypnosis, they remain in total control and can refuse any of the suggestions that are made to them. There are a number of established programs for hypnosis during childbirth. The two most common ones in the United States are the Hypnobabies method and hypnobirthing the Marie Mongan method. I'll talk a little bit more about those methods after we go through the evidence. I do know that we probably have a lot of Hypnobabies instructors and hypnobirthing practitioners who are listening to this podcast, as well as other educators who use other hypnosis methods. And I just wanted to give you a shout out and say that I'm grateful for all the work that you do. And I know you've always been supporters of evidence-based birth. Before we get into the evidence, I want to give you a little history. The term hypnosis was first proposed by James Braid in 1840, and soon after it started being used as a method of pain relief for childbirth. There were a lot of case reports published in medical journals in the 1950s where medical hypnosis was used instead of anesthesia for several surgical procedures, including cesareans for people who were considered to be highly hypnotizable, which is thought to be less than 10% of the general population. It's hard to believe that they were able to do surgeries like that without anesthesia, but you can read those case reports for yourself and they are super interesting. A number of research scales have been designed to measure how suggestible you are to hypnosis, meaning that researchers can predict if someone is likely to be suggestible to the suggestions. One study even found that women become more hypnotizable when they're pregnant, which has important implications for all of us who are either going to be pregnant in the future or working with people who are pregnant. Because this means once someone's pregnant, you're more susceptible to the verbal and nonverbal communications that people make to you. So if people are using a lot of really negative words and negative phrases and scare stories and traumatic stories around you, you're more susceptible to internalizing that information. On the other side, if people are using positive language, positive words, and positive stories, you're also suggestible to those communications as well. Medical hypnotherapy has actually been recognized by medical organizations since the 1950s as an effective tool for all sorts of conditions. There's research evidence that hypnosis is an effective clinical tool for treating different types of pain, even pain from severe burns. Case reports have also described using hypnosis instead of anesthesia for dental procedures, gallbladder surgery, and even coronary bypass surgery. However, today, hypnosis is more routinely used as a complement rather than an alternative to anesthesia for invasive procedures. And so the goal of using it as a complementary therapy is typically to lower anxiety and stress. Hypnotherapy has been used in clinical programs to help people with quitting smoking, managing their weight, and managing sleep disorders, depression, anxiety, nausea, and chronic pain. The brain is really powerful, and your mind can have a huge impact on what you feel. There's 2 resources I'd like to point you to. One is our video all about painless birth that is part of this pain management podcast series. It's available both in video format on YouTube, blog article format on our blog, and in our podcast. There's also a really interesting podcast from NPR that came out about 10 years ago all about the placebo effect, which has a lot of implications for pregnancy and childbirth and hypnosis. So I'll link to those resources in the blog post that goes with this podcast. So in 2016, a research team led by someone named Hauser did a meta-analysis and combined all of the randomized trials on using hypnosis for a variety of reasons. So this was not just for childbirth, but a whole bunch of different medical purposes. They found that hypnosis was superior to usual care in terms of reducing emotional stress, making you have a quicker recovery, and decreasing your need for pain medication. They concluded that hypnotherapy is a safe and effective complementary medicine technique for use in medical procedures, and they said it even shows promise for helping people manage irritable bowel syndrome. But what's the evidence specifically on using hypnosis for pain relief during labor? Well, in 2016, a research team led by Madden published a Cochrane review and meta-analysis. The review included 9 randomized controlled trials with a total of nearly 3,000 participants. The studies could have contained as few as 38 participants, and one study had about 1,200 participants. In 8 trials, the hypnotherapy began during pregnancy and was taught in group classes. In 4 studies, women were given audio tracks and told to practice daily at home. And in one study, hypnotherapy wasn't introduced until the person was in labor, and that was the first time that they got any hypnotherapy training. Researchers proposed that hypnosis might work in childbirth by changing how people perceive pain. And their theory is that hypnosis alters the higher centers of your central nervous system. This means that entering into a state of self-hypnosis during labor may activate certain mental processes and thoughts that make potentially painful sensations less unpleasant or even non-painful and totally comfortable. Now, one of the big problems with the 9 randomized trials in the Cochrane Review is that they may have used ineffective ways to prepare people to use hypnotherapy. For example, in some of the studies, people may have only had 1 or 2 sessions of training, and only learning about it 1 or 2 times and then not practicing does not effectively prepare someone to use hypnosis. People in the control groups in these studies received standard care, which may have included regular childbirth class, supportive counseling, and relaxation training. Some people in the studies also had access to epidurals, nitrous oxide or laughing gas, and injectable opioids such as Demerol. Blinding was attempted in 4 studies where they didn't tell women which group they ended up in, but the researchers did not report if the blinding was successful or not. So one of their findings was that people who received hypnosis were 27% less likely to have any drugs for pain relief during labor. And when they mean any drugs, this includes epidurals, injectable opioids, or nitrous. However, when they looked specifically at epidural use, they did not see any difference between epidural rates in the hypnosis group and the standard care group. In one analysis that the Cochrane researchers did, they found that there might be an interaction between when you start the hypnosis training and how much pain medication you need. They found that the earlier in pregnancy that you started the training, which gave you more time to practice, the less likely you were to need pain medication during labor. There were no clear differences between the hypnosis and control groups in their reports of how they felt like they coped during labor or their satisfaction with their pain relief when measured after labor. However, the researchers did find a slight benefit in satisfaction levels in the hypnosis group when hypnosis was combined with being immersed in a tub of warm water. This means that hydrotherapy, or getting into a warm tub of water, may work really well together with hypnosis. The researchers did not find any reports of bad side effects from using the hypnosis, and they concluded that the quality of the studies and the quality of their review was low to very low quality because of the many concerns they had about the methods of the study. Now, a study by Werner published in 2013 was the largest trial in this Cochrane Review. And because it made up a large portion of the Cochrane Review, it's helpful to look at this study because it can give you more details of what some of these studies were like. This study was carried out in Denmark and had about 1,200 participants. The people who were randomly assigned to hypnosis received 3 one-hour training sessions, and they were also given 3 audio tracks to listen to at home. The other group, the control group, received 3 one-hour sessions on training them how to relax. They had relaxation practice where they learned different techniques for relaxation. They also practiced mindfulness techniques. And the relaxation group also received audio tracks to listen to at home to help them with their relaxation practice. So you see, they were not comparing hypnosis to standard care. They were comparing hypnosis to a similar dose of relaxation training. The hypnosis group and the relaxation group were taught by the same group of midwives, and then they also had a third group that you could be randomly assigned to that did receive usual care and did not get one of the trainings. The researchers used a validated tool to measure fear, confidence, and expectations before the actual birth, and then they evaluated the same aspects of the childbirth experience 6 weeks postpartum. They found that women in the hypnosis group experienced their labor as significantly better on average compared with the other 2 groups. However, this protocol differs quite a bit than the hypnotherapy for childbirth protocols that are widely available in the United States, Canada, and other countries. So let's talk about some of those established programs and how they may differ from the studies in the Cochrane Review. 2 of the most established programs in the United States are Hypnobabies and Hypnobirthing. Both of these courses provide a lot longer training sessions, more training sessions, and more resources for people to use and practice at home than were used in the Werner study that had 1,200 participants in Denmark. Unfortunately, we don't have any randomized controlled trials on the Hypnobabies or Hypnobirthing method. We also don't have studies comparing these programs to each other, to other hypnosis programs, or to other childbirth education programs. However, it's quite possible that the hypnosis classes available in the United States and Canada and other countries today may have better outcomes than the studies that were included in the Cochrane Review, simply because of the longer length of the training sessions, the higher number of hours of training that you receive, the methods of hypnosis that are taught, and the emphasis on practicing the techniques regularly until the birth, which were not necessarily done in the studies in the Cochrane Review. Hypnobirthing, the Mongan method, was founded by Marie Mongan, a clinical hypnotherapist, in 1989. With this method, pregnant people and their companions complete a series of 5 2.5-hour classes over a period of 5 weeks. The program includes a textbook and relaxation audio tracks, along with birth affirmation audio tracks and positive thoughts for you to listen to about birth. They highly recommend that mothers attend the class in person with their birth partner. But if that isn't an option, several resources are available for purchase individually. The Hypnobirthing book, 4th edition, is the most recent, and there's a relaxation audio file, as well as several other relaxation and guided imagery audio tracks, and birthing DVDs with birth affirmations, images, birth stories, and music. You can learn more about Hypnobirthing, the Marie Mongan method, at us.hypnobirthing.com. The Hypnobabies method was founded by Carrie Tushoff, a certified hypnotherapist, and it's based on principles from Gerald Kine's, quote, painless childbirth training program. Parents who take Hypnobabies classes attend 6 training sessions with a total of 21 in-person training hours. They also receive 16 hypnosis audio tracks to listen to, as well as several birth affirmation audio files. Hypnobabies focuses on teaching people how to reach a deeper state of hypnosis called somnambulism, and to use something called eyes open hypnosis so that they can be awake, talking, eating, moving around, but still deeply in a state of hypnosis for pain relief. Birth partners are given 5 hypnotic scripts that they can read to their partner during pregnancy, and there are more scripts for the partner to read to them during labor. You can learn more about their program at hypnobabies.com. Hypnobabies also has a 6-week online home study course that they recommend as an alternative to taking the in-person class. There are other programs as well that have been developed by other hypnotherapists, and unfortunately I don't have time to go over them all, but most hypnosis childbirth classes, in my experience in talking with their instructors, most of these classes teach people deep relaxation methods and self-hypnosis methods and encourage frequent practice of relaxation and hypnosis up until the birth. They also teach people how to be critical consumers of their healthcare. They focus on teaching the partner how to become an active participant in the process. And also, they help people set themselves up for more success by making sure that their provider is on board with their birth plan and with their use of self-hypnosis. We only have one published program report from U.S. mothers who used one of the hypnosis methods in the United States, and that's hypnobirthing the Monken method. Now, program reports can provide some useful information, but they are not high-quality evidence. That's because they're based on voluntary survey reports, and people who fill out surveys are more likely to be the people who had better outcomes. This is what we call self-selection bias. So the program report on hypnobirthing was published in 2012 by Swensionis, and I received a copy from the author a few years ago. They found that hypnobirthing parents who completed the survey had a very low rate of medical interventions during labor, including a very low rate of epidural use at only 28%. This means that 72% of parents in their program gave birth without an epidural. They also asked them to describe how comfortable they felt during transition. Now remember, most of these people were having an unmedicated birth. So at 8 to 10 centimeters, 31% of the parents said that they found transition to be comfortable or mostly comfortable. 25% described late labor or transition as uncomfortable, and 44% said that they found late labor to be painful or extremely painful. In the end, 74% of parents who completed the survey said that they agreed or strongly agreed that hypnobirthing helped them have a more comfortable birth. When we look at women's experiences with hypnosis, there are a lot of birth stories online that you can read from parents who used either of these methods or even other methods. But there was one study from the United Kingdom. It was a qualitative study where they interviewed women who had used hypnosis in a clinical trial. And so I think this is really great information because it's mothers themselves talking about what they liked and didn't like about hypnosis. Most of the participants said that they had positive experiences with the hypnosis. They said that they felt calm, confident, and empowered. The researchers found one interesting side effect of hypnosis, and that was that some of the women got frustrated with their providers when their caregivers did not believe how far along they were in labor. In other words, once some of the women got to the hospital or birthing center, because they were in hypnosis and they were pretty comfortable and they were very calm outwardly, the providers thought, oh, you're not really in active labor, when the women actually were in very active labor. So that was one unexpected side effect, that caregivers and people around the birthing person may misinterpret their behaviors and vocalizations and think that they're not very far along when they are. Some women in the study also felt frustrated if their experiences didn't match their expectations. So if they expected a totally comfortable birth and they didn't get one, then they felt frustrated. But overall, they overwhelmingly felt that self-hypnosis was very beneficial. So to sum it up, there are a lot of limitations to the research on hypnosis for childbirth. The studies that were in the Cochrane Review are of low quality and use different types of interventions and probably too small a dose of hypnosis. However, the available evidence suggests that overall, self-hypnosis is helpful for women in labor. It appears to reduce the overall use of pain medication during labor. So if that's something you're looking to avoid, then hypnosis may be a good option for you. It's also especially helpful when you combine self-hypnosis with water immersion in a tub. Finally, researchers have found no adverse effects other than occasionally caregivers or care providers not believing that women were in active labor because they stayed so calm. I'll link to some birth stories in our blog article that goes with this podcast so that you can check out some birth stories of parents who've used hypnosis during childbirth. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I wanted to make one announcement, and that is that I am coming to Toronto on November 17 for an evidence-based birth event called Explore the Evidence. So keep your eyes open for info about that. If you live anywhere within close driving distance of Toronto, you are more than welcome to register for that event. It will be an all-day event on Saturday, November 17. Also, this week, if you follow us on Instagram at EBBirth, we are doing a giveaway of one of my favorite books called Real Food for Pregnancy, written by a registered dietitian who I know and respect, and I liked her book so much that I actually reached out to her and asked if we could do a giveaway. So just go to our Instagram page at EBBirth if you want to participate in that. That ends this Friday. Next week, we're taking a little bit of a break from our pain management series because the holidays are coming up here in the United States and summer vacation. So next week, I'm going to be releasing a podcast. So this won't be a blog article or a video. It's special just for you podcast listeners because I know that I depend on the podcast I listen to come out at a regular time every week. So next Wednesday, I'm going to release a podcast all about the signature articles, and I'm going to give you some key information and key updates that we've made over the past year. And the week after that, on the 4th of July, I'm going to give you a special podcast to tell you what's happening for the second half of 2018. And then on July 11, we'll return to our regularly scheduled pain management series. We're going to wrap up this pain management series by focusing on massage, music, rebozo, relaxation, breathing, and then we're going to do a wrap up of everything that we've learned. So stay tuned for next week when I'll teach you some really important new research that's come out. And I hope you all have a fantastic week. Thanks everyone for listening. Bye.